Hello, everyone. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Emily.
And we're the hosts of the I Don't Think So podcast. Each episode, we discuss a different story, theory, or mystery and decide if we think it's believable or if we really don't think so.
Here at the I Don't Think So podcast, we are affiliated with Flurry Sports, and we present our theories on your favorite place to listen to podcasts every Wednesday. If you like what you hear, go ahead and give us a rating or leave a comment, and definitely follow us on all of our socials at I Don't Think So _EH, or check out our YouTube page at IDTS Conspiracies.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah! Happy Halloween!
Y'all. We have reached the epitome of spooky season.
It's here.
Mm-hmm.
It's on and popping, and now it's gonna be over, and I'm gonna be Christmas.
One of my students today said that they took down their Halloween decorations this weekend and started decorating for Christmas.
Oh.
And I'm like, I love Christmas.
Little soon.
But you put in so much effort to put up like tons of Halloween decorations, and then you're taking them down
Before Halloween?
And they're like, yeah, we are over it because they've been decorated since September 1st.
It was your fault.
That's what I said. Anywho, we are kind of wrapping up our spooky season, if you will. We've been talking about haunted places. We got to hear about the place in Italy.
Yep, the place in Italy, the pub in, I wanted to call it Worcestershire. That was not right.
I don't know, Gloucestershire or something like that. England. We heard about some spooky places in Wisconsin.
Yeah, top 10 spookiest places in Wisconsin. Quick rundown of them. I'm not going to do them. I don't know.
I was like, you have them memorized? That's crazy.
It is great. Could you imagine? No, I don't have them memorized.
No. Well, I'm going to keep it in Wisconsin as well, actually. And this is something that I forgot that I'd originally saved as a TikTok.
Oh,
I think over a year ago.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, we should do this sometime. And then I forgot about it. And then I rethought of it last week as you were sharing haunted places. And I was listening for it to see if you'd share it. And you didn't. So I'm super excited.
Nice. Not every, Mound Hill was not on that list either.
Oh, and when I searched up haunted places in Wisconsin, and it probably was using my location, but they're like Mound Hill. And I'm like, what?
That's right over this way.
Anywho, we are going to be talking about the second Salem witch trials, which takes place in Whitewater, Wisconsin.
Oh, come on, Whitewater.
I heard a TikTok on this, like I said, over a year ago, and I'd never realized that we kind of had our own little witch trials here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, no.
And so today we're going to be talking about Mary Worth, Morris Pratt, and the legends of Whitewater surrounding witchcraft and things like that. So, yeah. It's the legend says that there's different bizarre experiments conducted at the Morris Pratt Institute of Spiritualism that was communicating with the dead, and it supposedly left the town cursed by witches and haunted by relentless spirits. So it's dubbed nationally as the second Salem, which I had no idea.
No. You know what I know Whitewater for? Nothing.
Nothing. I think they have a college.
I think they have a 2-year university.
There you go. But now you'll know. There's witches that run rampant in Whitewater.
You know what I also appreciate? That they're there was experiments happening, and now we're cursed with witches. Witches aren't beings. I mean, they're beings, but they're not
they're not people.
Witches are people too. They're not you can't just be infested with them.
Witches. I know, that's what I thought. But apparently they believe the town's been cursed because of these experiments of talking to the dead.
Well, yeah. Leave dead people alone, you freaks.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. So it all starts with the big rise in spiritualism. So it's said that the Morris Pratt Institute was one of the first big locations of spiritualism to be spread in Wisconsin. And a historian in 1930 said that the school was attempting to radioize students to be able to like catch spirit messages from another world, of like trying to connect these two worlds, of training students to be more aware of the spirits and things around them.
I just like to say, if I told my mom or my dad, more my dad than my mom wouldn't be thrilled either. If I told my dad I'm going to school to learn to talk to the dead people, he would make such fun of me.
Yeah.
I would never hear the end of it. He'd be like, okay, I have a premonition.
He would. Anywho, Wisconsin didn't really like start with the whole spiritualism basis. A lot of people say that like the Fox sisters of Hydesville, New York was like the first people to really start practicing spiritualism and making it so important. Mm-hmm. But they started like making institutes throughout the United States to then be able to talk to people. It's said that in Madison, Milwaukee, and the Fox Valley area became home to like a lot of large spiritualist communities by the late 1800s because of the rise in spiritualism after the Civil War, because of the amount of deaths and things like that throughout the United States.
People trying to, heal from trauma.
Exactly. Grasping to whatever they could, right? So one of Wisconsin's earliest supporters of spiritualism was Nathaniel P. Talmadge, which was a senator originally from New York, who was appointed as the third governor of Wisconsin, the territory of Wisconsin, by President John Tyler in 1844. So he kind of came out this way, was already practicing spiritualism in New York, and kind of like brought these ideas to Wisconsin when he came to be governor. So Talmadge had recently purchased land in the Wisconsin territory to prepare for like his retirement, but he decided to move like his whole family there when he accepted the governorship. And so he and his wife Abby had a 19-year-old son named William, which is who this institute was later named after. Okay.
I have a bad feeling for William then.
Mm-hmm. And so he's 19 years old when he visited from law school to see his family's new home in the spring of 1845. And he like fell in love with the property. It was like this large hill. And he said that one day when he died, he wanted to be buried on this hill because he just thought it was so beautiful and everything. Then just 2 weeks later, William's life came to an abrupt end, and he ended up being buried in his spot at the top of the hill.
How'd he die? Does it say?
No idea. Unexpected and abrupt.
Spooky.
Mm-hmm.
Probably horse and carriage, dangerous.
Probably.
Do you remember? So sorry. This is going to be a real left turn. Do you remember we went on that I think it was a 4-H trip, or it was a school trip, not sure which. And we visited like an Amish farm.
Yes.
And they did like Jacob's carriage, and it's this play for people who weren't on this 4-H
Oh my god, I forgot about this. It was in Pennsylvania, and it crashed.
They killed off this Amish boy because he crashes his horse and buggy. I think when he was drunk after a party or something.
What was that?
I don't know, but they showed like a tipped over wagon on fire.
Oh my! And it was like one of those kind of plays where they like bring out the props and they kind of like slide it out, and all of a sudden they were like sliding out a like crashed buggy,
and they're like, he died. Jacob died.
And part of me thinks it's true.
Talk about someone trying to deal with a trauma. Or that was the same Amish place that had the baby caskets?
Oh. Also, do you remember we were like touring their homes?
Yeah.
And they're like, notice how this one home has power, because the one's kids was like super sick, and they had to get special permission from their pastor to get power to give this kid oxygen or something.
Oh no, I don't remember that. I remember if you see like green curtains, it's an Amish house or something.
I just remember one having like power to it. And they're like, but we only have power in this one room. And I'm like,
a child can only breathe in this one room.
I don't know. I was just thinking, why are you having to pray to your God to get permission to help the child live? Is was that to our New York trip?
I think so.
My 9-year-old self was like, this doesn't seem like what God would want.
All I remember was being like, Jacob died. It got so dark so fast. And then they had, like caskets for babies.
What a wild trip.
I'm so sorry, that was such a left turn, but then I was like, he probably died of horse and carriage. And then all of a sudden, like, it flicked a memory in my brain of this upturned carriage prop. I was like,
I've thought about that randomly throughout my life.
No. Oh, same.
Wow.
The fact that I remember this fake Amish boy's name was Jacob too must have traumatized me.
I feel like when we said it, we're like, imagine if that was like your brother Jacob who died from drunk driving this horse and buggy.
I don't know if he was drunk driving, but I feel like
wasn't a drunk driver hit them or something?
It felt like it was a lesson.
But I feel, and maybe this is me having a tainted memory. Maybe it was like a drunk driver killed the horse and buggy, and they're like, and that's why, like, evolution, that's why cars are bad. And I was like, this is how you teach your Amish children that they shouldn't drive?
And try to convert non-Amish folks?
I don't know. But then I think about the amount of, like, Amish people I see riding with their children who have driver's licenses, and I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Like I said, so sorry, that was such a left turn.
Anywho,
we can go back
to William.
Dying.
So 2 weeks later, bad news bears, he died. They buried him on the hill.
Okay.
By 1853, Nathaniel, the governor, was really like a devout spiritualist because he really wanted to be in contact with the sun. He felt like this was going to bring him some like comfort and things like that. And in a book that published a year later, there was a letter from Nathaniel that he wrote to one of the authors and described how his youngest daughter, Emily, then 13.
I think it's your husband.
I thought there was like a siren outside. No, just my husband whistling like a police siren.
Sorry,
in the background. Anyway, Nathaniel ended up writing to one of these authors of the spiritualist book about his youngest daughter named Emily.
Hey.
She was then 13 years old. Who was being taught by spirits to play the piano.
Imagine she goes up there and plays chopsticks.
So anyway, that kind of gives you some background on Nathaniel and how he kind of started bringing some spiritualist things to Wisconsin. The other person in the area that was a big devout spiritualist's name was Morris Pratt. So Morris Pratt was another New York native that immigrated to Wisconsin in the 1850s. And he ended up building like a farm in the Whitewater area where he and a number of like neighboring families frequented like seances in Lake Mills, which is like the home of the legendary like Rock Lake pyramids and things like that.
Yeah.
And he would host mediums from around the country to communicate with their dead loved ones and bring them to his house and do it. Okay.
This is a lot.
I know. And so Pratt was known to engage in like many arguments with ministers that criticized spiritualism. And he was forcibly ejected from a church on more than one occasion because of his like speaking out against Christianity in favor of spiritualism. So he was super frustrated and he wanted a way that he could teach what he believed were scientific truths of this like spiritual life. So during a seance in the early 1880s, Pratt vowed that if he ever became wealthy, he would dedicate much of his money to spiritualism. He ended up gaining this great fortune, and he was trying to find people with psychic abilities who would help him achieve his goals and things like that. So in 1853, a 27-year-old school teacher in Waterloo named Mary Hayes Chenoweth had experience with a weird experience that she claimed changed her life forever. She was in the kitchen of the family farm where she lived with her parents when she felt something that she described as a force taking control of her body. And Mary felt herself drop to her knees and she began to pray in a language that neither she nor her parents nearby could recognize.
So gibberish.
Mm-hmm. And she says the force told her that she would spend the rest of her life healing others. Schizophrenic.
That, or like, not real. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I dropped to my knees and went, and
And that's how I knew I was going to save your life.
I knew I was going to be a good person.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, after that, she discovered that she had the ability to peer into the bodies of the sick and see the diseases ailing them and remove them. She learned how to take the sickness into her own body, which would cause her to break out into blisters and rashes, but otherwise didn't harm her, apparently. And they called this spirit knocking, and other like supernatural phenomenon were being practiced by mediums across the country in exchange for money. And Mary believed that those were hoaxes. And she didn't do that. She was like a real true person that could like heal these people. And she began accepting sick visitors into her home, as well as traveling around Wisconsin, healing people for free at least. She wasn't charging them money. You know?
That's nice of her.
Yeah. So
to give these people a false sense of hope. That's so
at least
sweet.
she's not charging them money yet.
Yes. Oh.
I don't know. She believed that she needed to use this power given to her by God to help those rather than faking spirit communication and taking money from the grieving, which is good. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Good for her.
it says that she was not a medium. She just really wanted to like empower this. And it was said that in her young womanhood that she became she was really interested in the question of like a man's immorality, and prayed for 2 years to like know the truth behind all of this. And as a result, she passed through an experience somewhat similar to that of Jesus in the wilderness as recorded in the Bible. She spoke in tongues unknown to her. She restored those possessed to a normal condition and did untold miraculous things that could not be explained by the use of any ordinary human methods. From that time until her death, a large part of her time was given to healing of the sick, and she did this without charge or financial compensation.
She sounds like, in the Catholic Church, there's saints. Like that. It sounds like that.
That's kind of what I was thinking, but I don't know. Anyway, going back to Pratt ended up getting Mary's attention of like, I want to be a spiritualist. You can heal people. Mambo combo. This is great.
We're together.
Mm-hmm. And so she had been attending the seances in Lake Mills and Whitewater at the recommendation of her friend Warren Chase. Chase published a weekly newspaper called The Spiritual Telegraph, and it's credited to be the first like spread of spiritualism around Wisconsin and Illinois. And he expressed to Mary a desire to like open a school in the area for spiritualism. And she said, do you intend, if made wealthy, to like carry out your promise to actually open this institute? She asked this to Pratt, and Pratt confirmed that he really wanted to do this. He would use the money to push this movement of spiritualism. So Mary told Pratt, along with her 2 sons who were lawyers, with the interest of mining, to invest in this barren that seemed worthless piece of land in northern northern Wisconsin and upper Michigan Peninsula. And Mary said that she had been guided to this land by her quote controlling spirit, which is an old German professor, while in a trance. So this old German professor spirit told her to tell her mining sons that they should invest in this barren in northern Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan to mine to get money. Okay.
I mean,
and so Pratt and Mary's son did what Mary instructed, and they called it the Hayes Brothers Company. With Pratt as a stockholder, bought the land, opened the Ashland Iron Mine in Ashland, Wisconsin, and began digging. And the land yielded nothing for the first couple of years.
Get it, Mary.
Pratt came to Mary with doubts on several occasions, but she urged him to be patient. And then in 1886, a huge discovery was made. The land Mary recommended was found to be the heart of the massive Gojebik iron range, and it was filled with like high grade ore, which was some of the best in the region. So she was guided by that old German professor.
What does the German professor know?
I don't know, but he's some spirit that was guiding her to what to do. And they practically became wealthy overnight.
I mean, good for them.
So Pratt set out to fulfill his promise without hesitation, and in 1888, he laid the foundation for a building in Whitewater without knowing exactly what purpose it would serve at the time. He just knew, like, he wanted it to be used in the interest of spiritualism. He was going to make some sort of, like, meeting place, whatever, and pretty much all the locals thought they were crazy.
Yeah.
They're like, why are you doing this? And the construction became known around town as Pratt's Folly. But Pratt didn't back down. He said, I made a vow before I made my investment that I would erect a temple to the spirit world with a share of the profits I was, if I ever became wealthy. So I'm going to do it.
I mean, I appreciate that he's like, I said I would do it. I'm going to do it. You know, like I can appreciate.
He sticks to his word.
He's holding up his end.
Yeah. And he's like, not just keeping the money as his own. So I guess whatever. Anywho, upon its completion, Pratt and his wife left their farm and moved to occupy several rooms within this like huge 3-story building in Whitewater. And they held public seances there for many years before Pratt decided to make Whitewater the, quote, Mecca of modern spiritualism.
Oh boy.
By opening the world's only school dedicated to the study of the spirit world.
Oh boy.
Okay. In 1902, while making plans to open the school, Pratt's health began to give out. He reportedly gave the deed to the estate to 7 spiritualists as like a sort of board of trustees to control it.
Sure.
And they supposedly have never had their names accounted for in any written documents. And just a few months later, Pratt died.
Okay, sir.
You
didn't write them down?
And so he kind of gave it to the Seventh-day Adventist minister turned spiritualist to carry out his plans for the school, okay? And his name is Mr. Hull. And he gave the spiritualist the idea of what death would be in the spirit world. And he claimed that death was neither to be dreaded nor feared as it's natural in any event in life. And it is only a birth out of the physical body into the spiritual world. So he's like, don't worry, I'll still be here.
That's nice of him.
So Hull tried to carry out Pratt's wishes, and the doors of the Morris Pratt Institute opened the following year. The terrible loss of life in the Civil War fueled America's interest in the spiritualism, had faded by the time the school opened, though, and there were still some who sought to learn the art of talking to the dead. So some students came from around the country to study like general subjects like mathematics, history, grammar, and literature, as well as the philosophy of spiritualism and psychic culture. It had living quarters and facilities for up to 50 students, but they never had more than 45 at a time in the height of its time from 1910 to 1915. And the school was known by that time to the Whitewater residents as the Spook Temple.
You know what? Yeah.
And so the curious did show some interests, and they ended up opening the doors every Sunday for Sunday evenings for seances. And one of the more famous ones was in 1924 called The Mediumship Explained. On the walls hung like very famous spiritualist pieces, things like that. However, the 3rd floor was off limits to everyone but members of the spiritualist church. And the space was this like hollowed chamber where everything was painted white. And so it was said to like be so plain that could help attract spirits and things like that. The funding for the Institute ended up drying up during the Depression, and the Institute sold the building in 1946 to a new owners. Later, it was used as a girls' dormitory for the Wisconsin Teachers College. Terrifying.
Yikes.
And it's said to still see like paranormal activity since then. So they believe because of this like long distant communication with the dead has been replaced with like long distance calling of the living for people to come and like look at spirits and things like that. But it said that wasn't the end of the Morris Pratt Institute. After selling the building to Whitewater, the school moved to Milwaukee, where it still exists today. And so now it's Wisconsin's Wenawak spiritualist camp that's dedicated to the study of psychic phenomena, which I'm like, I didn't even know they still had that. Anyway, this then seeped into what's known as the Witches of Whitewater. Okay. So Whitewater today is still like suppressed by these like legends of ghosts and witchcrafts that's come to be known as the Second Salem. So there's been rumors about like dark rituals being carried out in the secret tunnels beneath the city and around a historic stone water tower in Starin Park. And it's said to be like a place of great significance to witches of Whitewater. A forbidden book locked away in the basement of the Anderson Local Library said to drive readers to like madness and suicide. And there was a haunted triangle formed by the city's 3 cemeteries. And at the center of this is the Spook Temple.
Oh boy.
Or the Pratt Institute, where they're contacting these spirits. Okay. So there's this thing called the Witches Tower. And according to local lore, witnesses have seen covens of witches conducting rituals around or inside the tower. And it just kind of increased the stigma as like people have continued to like trespass and do different things around it. It said that this is then called the Witches Triangle. So Whitewater legend says that every building is haunted within the nearly perfect triangular formation of the 3 cemeteries within the city's limits. Okay. And they call this the Witches Triangle.
Question. You connect any 3 points? Isn't it a triangle?
Yes. But supposedly all the buildings within the triangles are haunted.
Okay.
With the Spook Temple in center.
Ah.
And so a lot of people like relate this back to the seances. And they believe that this was connected to witchcraft, even though there's a huge separation between witchcraft and spiritualism. But now it's just like been combined together as like spooky, scary things happening in Whitewater. So legend says that in the Oak Grove Cemetery, that's the final resting place of Mary Worth, which is like the axe murdering witch who not only cursed the town when she was executed for her crimes in Whitewater, but some people think that she had been the inspiration for certain Bloody Mary legends, specifically in Wisconsin. Her ghost can be seen wandering among tombstones on Halloween in Whitewater. And Oak Grove is also said to be the site of ritual sacrifices in the 19th century. Those who conducted the sacrifices in local lore says that they were buried upright in the cemetery around the altar to remain like blood sacrifices.
Ew.
Mm-hmm. And beyond this, some stories say that the vault at Hillside Cemetery, which is another one of the cemeteries in the triangle, is the real grave of Mary Worth, who is that like axe murderer witch. And the receiving vaults were used to store the bodies of who died during the winter months underground until they were thawed enough to actually bury them. But there was no like direct association of her ever being there. Other stories include Sarah Posey, who may be the person who they believe is haunting the Hamilton house, which is within the triangle, as well as Edward Shade, who is the unfortunate husband of the quote poison widow Myrtle Shade, and they think she had connections to the Morris Pratt Institute herself. Trying to kill people to then like seance them back.
Girl, just pick someone who's already dead.
Mm-hmm.
You don't gotta kill them.
And then the final cemetery, the Calvary Cemetery, which borders the land once occupied by the Shade Farm, is now the UW Whitewater Sports Complex. And it has the grave of Nellie Horan, who poisoned her entire family. And they believe she was
women?
And they believe they were
all
witches and things like that as well.
Of course they were.
There's lots of continued stories of like noises among the lakes in Whitewater, things like that on hauntings. But they believe that everything was suspected all back to the beginning of the spiritualist church, and then the witches that came to follow after that to try to access like the spirits and things like that. So that is the story.
A lot of really interesting history backing that one.
I'd love, they do like tours and things like that. I think it would be fun to go and like
tour it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do we always hate witches? Like we're like, some people can just be witches and not be bad people, you know?
That's what I think too. But like, it just seems like there's lots of like murderous women and you're like, witch.
Witch! I love those TikToks. That's like the person in the pilgrim costume.
Oh yeah.
Witch!
That's good.
I like those a lot. Anyways.
Well, to wrap up our spooky season, I did find one more Reddit scary story as well too.
Perfect.
So
hit me with it.
this is supposedly a true story. I found it on Real Life Ghost Stories Reddit.
Thank you, Reddit.
So this was posted 2 years ago, but I just recently found it as I was looking through things after you did one last week, and I thought this was creepy. So,
perfect.
and I also imagined us being the people at home and knew that we would never get over this.
No, excuse you, never.
So something is titled "Something Invited Itself into My Friend's Home." It starts by saying, I've told the story on another subreddit, but this is the one haunting experience that really freaked me out. When I was younger, I had a next door neighbor named Lexi, and she was my best friend. Our parents would go on trips on motorcycles with each other, and we would camp out at one of our houses until they came back. It was normal for us. We never had any paranormal events prior to this specific night. We were sitting in the bedroom, talking and doing what we normally did, just hanging out. We ended up seeing a bright light through her window, followed with the sound of motorcycles pulling into the gravel driveway. We instantly think, okay, our parents forgot something because they just recently left. But before we could even get up to leave the bedroom, we heard a knock and a soft woman's voice saying, "Hello?" The front door opened. This was a familiar sound because the door scraped against the hardwood flooring. We panicked, thinking there was an intruder at this point because the woman didn't sound like, the woman didn't sound like our parents. We have typical Texan accents and things like that. We scouted the house, scared out of our minds, just to find out that the front door was wide open. No one was in the driveway. No one was in the house.
Ew.
We finally felt better. We walked back to our bedroom, but before we could enter, my friend collapsed on the floor and started sobbing. I didn't know what was happening. I was scared, and she told me something as tall as the door frame was standing in her parents' room.
I'm gonna cry. Can you fucking imagine? I'm sorry, Hannah. If you did that to me, I would deck you on the floor. I'm looking, and if I don't see it, I'm squaring up and just laying you out.
Oh my God. Said after our parents returned, her family continued to have paranormal activity in their house until the day they moved out.
I can't, I won't.
Is that not terrifying?
I also would be the one that dropped to the floor
crying.
I'm a fawner. So that's me. But like, not only would I maybe fawn, I would be hauling my ass out of that house.
I think I would run. I would like run out of there and be like, F no, get me out of here.
I don't even know if I could tell you. There's something in my parents' room that's as tall as the fucking door frame. After we just are looking, thinking that someone is in this house.
Because like, how did the door open?
Another thing. I'm not that brave.
No, I would be in the room. That's it. If I hear a voice that's not mine, I'm locking the door and not leaving.
I am calling my parents at the bare minimum and calling the cops most likely. Because the second I hear like, oh my God, there's a person who just came in the house is not my parents. I'm calling the cops.
100%.
And I'm locking my bedroom door. Not that my bedroom door has a lock on it, but I am putting everything I've got in front of it. And then the cops come and they tell me, oh, no, was here. You know, someone maybe was gonna come in, and then they left. Blah 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 blah. And so then I think I'm safe,
Mhm.
and then I see some motherfucker
In the door frame.
as tall as the door frame. So they're pushing like 7 foot. I'm not making it.
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna die of a heart attack.
Well, I don't know where I'm going, but anywhere is better than being in that house at that point.
You can't make me stay there. You cannot make me.
You're
stay
sleeping there after that? Not
there.
happening.
No. Also, like I said, if I see this thing in the door frame, and I do what I do, and I plant my ass on the ground to sob, you can bet your kid's sweet ass I'm never opening my eyeballs again.
No, and then like I want to like comment like, so what did you do after that? You just sat there and cried and were like, oh, bummer.
You waited till because your parents just left.
Mm-hmm.
Going for a motorcycle ride, so they're going to be gone bare minimum an hour.
Yeah.
If not multiple hours. And you just saw some creepy ass shit in the door frame. I'm not gonna be in the house. I just won't.
Ugh. No.
That's creepy.
Yeah. So there's your spooky season episode finale.
Woo! I hope you all have a fun and safe Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the Wisconsin area, dress warm, wear layers.
Sad. Ruins every Halloween costume in my winter
Listen.
coat.
You could be the cutest little thing, and then you have to throw a freaking parka on in Wisconsin. It's so cold every single time. And I've bitched about this before. I developed young. I was this height. I kind of looked like this in like the 5th grade. And I was still trick-or-treating because I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to like wear like women's costumes. And they were all like sexy bumblebee, sexy witch, sexy pirate. And it's like, there's not enough fabric.
No, nothing being covered.
Firstly, I'm not that old. Like, it's weird to put a tube dress on a 10-year-old. But, you know,
That was questionable choice.
it was a choice. But then, all your friends are nice and warm in their kids' princess costumes with their long sleeved with long skirts and a hat. And I'm like, not only are my legs out, my top's out, everything's out. The tights they gave me are thin.
They're doing nothing.
They're like not there for. They're there for aesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cold.
Mm-hmm.
I died every year. I was like, this is awful.
Yeah, no. I think by that point I was like making my own Halloween costumes.
Look at you.
Like just normal clothes. Like, oh, I'm a hippie.
Ah.
Oh, I'm a dork. A nerd, whatever.
Yeah, the last year I went, I was a sexy bumblebee.
in the 5th grade.
And we got it like a couple sizes too big, so it wasn't quite
Tight.
as skin tight or as short.
Which probably made it worse.
It was awful. It was like, I distinctly remember being in middle school wearing this like short tight dress.
Did you wear it to school?
I think so.
That's crazy.
I know. It had wings and everything.
You were that kid.
Wow.
Wow. Well, if you like what you hear, definitely share our show. Send us some suggestions of what you'd like us to talk about next month. And yeah,
We'll see you guys next week.
bye.